What kind of a shepherd are you? You can find all sorts of internet taxonomies very quickly. What kind of a person are you? What kind of a leader? What kind of a girl are you? What kind of a snacker? What kind of a saver, driver, spender, learner? And of course, recent addition to this, what Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter character are you? But my guess is that you've never really considered what kind of a shepherd you are because, well, you likely do not consider yourself one. Unless you are. My guess is that most of us have not actually spent much time around sheep or any farm animals other than to see them perhaps from a distance when driving through sparsely populated areas, and then often only when traveling in some faraway or foreign lands. But you are likely to have some notion of the life of a shepherd, if perhaps only from cinematic depictions of the birth of Jesus or your own church's nativity plays depicting the same. It doesn't help to build in us natural esteem for the shepherding leadership role that diminutive 10-year-olds typically play it. I consider you a shepherd if your role in life involves looking after younger, less mature, less skilled, or more dependent people than yourself. If you are a parent, you are of course a shepherd. If you're an adult child of aging parents, you may very well be a shepherd. If you're an older sibling or the sibling of someone with mental or physical challenges, you are likely a shepherd. But as well, if you are a boss or a supervisor, the chief, if you deal with customers or clients in your work, then you are a shepherd. If you're a spouse, you're a shepherd, ideally in a mutual and complementary way. And frankly, if you want to be a good friend, then you will be called on from time to time to act as a shepherd. I actually believe the things we'll talk about in this short video will help you in almost every relationship you treasure in your life, so you might want to keep watching. We will consider two iconic passages from the Old and New Testaments that famously draw on this image as a study in leadership. Psalm 23, Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. Next, I'm going to be reading from John 10, the first 5 verses, and then verses 10 through 15. Very truly, I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Verse 10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because the hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own and my own know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. The psalmist makes a dramatic claim. My shepherd is the most excellent shepherd you can have. I lack absolutely nothing at all with the Lord as my shepherd. The psalm is a piece of ad copy. You might see similar text in a high-end travel magazine emphasizing the excellence of 3 perfect days in Tuscany. The psalm implicitly asks the reader, do you experience lack? If so, you should get the Lord as your shepherd. It's an extraordinary claim. Sheep are not particularly clever animals and are easily frightened or discontent. But in the expert care of the Lord as a shepherd, this psalmist says he lacks nothing and fears nothing. Yet the psalmist has a problem. He wants to communicate an idea about his relationship with God that cannot be expressed using the sheep shepherd image. For while the sheep's provision and protection can be clearly modeled in this passage, the psalmist enjoys an intimate relationship with God that the sheep shepherd image does not and cannot convey. So in verse 5, he moves to a host guest image. The Lord is like a gracious host, honoring him with anointing and refilling his cup as they share intimate, unhurried table fellowship, even when enemies in peril threaten to intrude on their communion together. Finally, in the psalm, the psalmist says, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. I imagine twin girls, Goodness and her sister Mercy, aged about 10, carrying baskets of flowers, like flower girls at a wedding. But instead of walking before the bride, they walk behind the psalmist, reaching into their baskets and tossing flower petals of mercy and kindness along behind the psalmist. A very comforting image, no? Yeah, I'm sorry, that's not the image at all. The word used in this passage, follow, is in the original Hebrew, hunt me down, as in surely goodness and his twin mercy, hulking bounty hunters on horseback in service to the shepherd king, will hunt me down, rope and tie me up, and bring me back, forcefully if necessary, to the house of my God and King. This verse doesn't present an image of a contented homebody sheep. Instead, it is a recognition that God sometimes must deal with us roughly to bring us back from our wayward wandering. He intends good for his sheep, but his sheep, people like the psalmist or even us, are prone to wander. So in his goodness, he hunts us down and brings us back to his shepherd's care. That stunning image enlarges the impact of the psalm's concluding verse somewhat, does it not? Now let us return to the passage in John 10. I believe that Jesus may have been reflecting on Psalm 23 the day or two before he presented this teaching to the disciples or other listeners. He may also have been reflecting on the practice of shepherding as he had no doubt seen it lived out in the Galilean countryside context. As modern readers, we are familiar with Jesus' claim to be the Good Shepherd, but to his first century hearers, this would be a radical claim. They would undoubtedly know the psalm he indirectly references in his claim. This would at least raise alarm bells. Later in the chapter, he continues to emphasize the connection between himself and his Father and between himself and the sheep, who hear his voice and follow him. He concludes by saying, I and the Father are one. At this point, the religious conservatives want to pick up stones against him for blasphemy. So at least let us not miss the radical claim Jesus is making when he claims to be the Good Shepherd, not just another Good Shepherd. Considering this short text in John 10 again, Jesus uses three images to contrast the Good Shepherd. What does each teach us about being a shepherd? He talks about the stranger. The sheep don't know his voice, but recognize only the good shepherd's voice and will only follow him. The stranger tells the sheep, I'm the shepherd, you should all follow me. But the sheep aren't fooled. The thief. The thief comes only to kill and destroy, and it is compared to the good shepherd who comes to offer life abundantly. The thief sees the sheep and thinks dinner or money. And finally, there's the hired hand. He looks like a shepherd when things are going well, but flees in the face of danger when the good shepherd lays down his life to protect the sheep from the wolf. The hired hand's top priority is own survival, not that of the sheep. In this passage, Jesus makes unique claims about himself as the good shepherd compared to others who would try to influence the sheep but are not the good shepherd. And we do not read either of these passages thinking that we can be the good shepherd or like the Lord who is the perfect shepherd. No, we read these passages because we need to learn the source of any good shepherding we might try to do. Because good shepherding begins with God as our shepherd. We cannot be a shepherd if we do not have a shepherd. We cannot be good shepherds if we do not have the good shepherd as our shepherd. The Jews of Judea who heard Jesus give this teaching were familiar with the usurpers who claimed to be leaders and shepherds but failed to provide the kind of care for the flock described in Psalm 23. So Jesus speaks about these three types of usurpers, and each fit a description of someone who is not experiencing the shepherd care of the Lord as their shepherd. So I want to compare the benefits described in Psalm 23 and John 10, the benefits of the Lord as shepherd, with the contrast images described in John 10. And I've identified three main benefits. There are many benefits listed in these passages, but the three main benefits are: one, abundance. There's no lack. There's green grass, cool water, lying down, rest, restoration, abundance, overflowing cup. I come that they may have life and have it abundantly. Secondly, protection. The rod and staff provide protection and comfort, even in a dark valley, even in the presence of enemies. Protection. And thirdly, intimacy, guidance in right paths, table fellowship, anointed with honor, pictures of intimacy in these passages. Each of these three main benefits are contrasted by one of the contrast images presented in John 10. That you have the thief. The thief lacks abundance of the Lord as shepherd. This would-be shepherd is not there to serve the sheep, but to get their own needs met by the sheep. The thief sees the sheep and sees dinner or money. Like Sylvester looking at Tweety Bird, the thief cannot see the sheep as individuals with their own needs because the thief is focused on getting his own needs met. He doesn't have the Lord as his shepherd, so he must get his needs met through the sheep. The hired hand lacks the protection of the Lord as shepherd. This would-be shepherd looks great when the sun is shining and the sheep are happy and no threats are around, but fails at the point of danger or conflict. The hired hand doesn't know the protection of the Lord as her good shepherd, so she flees in the face of danger, seeking to protect herself, leaving the sheep at risk. Thirdly, the stranger lacks the intimacy of the Lord as shepherd. This would-be shepherd leads not out of relationship, but out of role, focusing on their title, badge, or office rather than the relational trust that would give their positional authority its due influence. The stranger shepherd makes claims. You should follow me. I'm the team leader. I'm in charge. But people don't listen because they don't recognize the stranger. The stranger is not used to a deep relationship with the Lord as their shepherd, and so does not lead out of that similar kind of relationship. Now, we know in Jesus' day that the Pharisees and the Jewish religious leaders might fall neatly into any or perhaps all three of these categories. It's easy to hear about these contrast images and think, I'm so glad I'm not like those Pharisees. But the reality is, we all have a little bit of thief in us, a little bit of hired hand, and a little bit of stranger. If you lead a youth ministry and meet a new teenager who plays a guitar, perhaps you think, oh, I could really use you in the worship band for the youth group. That seemingly harmless thought is the thought of the thief, who sees the youth not as a person with hopes and dreams and needs and anxieties, but merely, or at least primarily, as someone to be used by the ministry of the thief shepherd. Consider the home group leader, who is very excited to lead the small group when things are going well and everyone is participating well. Still, when the group begins to experience conflict about competing priorities, the group leader thinks, perhaps I'm not called to this. This is a classic hired hand situation, leading when things are going well, but fleeing in the face of danger when interpersonal conflict crops up. But of course, it is precisely at that time that a good shepherd leader is needed most. Or consider the new leader in an organization or team who has been given the title of leader. Others aren't so sure, but are willing to see how the new leader does. But instead of listening and getting to know the team, building trust and earning authority, the new leader charges ahead with policy and program directives that are not understood, let alone owned by the team. This stranger is trying to lead the flock because she wears the title of leader rather than because she has gotten to know the flock. Even in our closest and most loving relationships, we can be tempted to act a little bit like a thief, a hired hand, or a stranger when stressed. We can be tempted to treat our spouses like their needs represent a threat to our own needs being met. We can be tempted to see our children not for how we can serve and shepherd them, but how their successes can gratify us and meet our needs for accomplishment. We can be tempted to use rank and directives to accomplish what would be better accomplished through cooperation, gentle influence, and persuasion. So, what hope is there for us when we sense that we are falling into a thief, hired hand, stranger shepherding pattern of relating to people around us? Well, we need to do as the psalmist has recommended and return to get from the Lord what we need so that we can say, I lack nothing. If the Lord is truly my shepherd, then I don't need to look at others for what they can give me, but rather for how I can serve, shepherd, and provide for them as the Lord has done for me. If the Lord is my shepherd, I don't need to look out for myself. The Lord is my back, so I can lay down my rights for others, knowing the Lord's protection even amid peril, conflict, and difficulty. I can be generous with credit in work contexts. I can be willing to accept blame rather than vice versa, knowing that the Lord is my back as a good shepherd. And if the Lord is truly my intimate host and friend, showing honor and care to me, then I can do the same to others and lead out of relationship rather than simply out of a role defined by a badge, a title, or an office. I can be generous with time and honor as the Lord has been with me, building trust with the flock and helping them willingly to follow. We cannot be good shepherds if we do not have a good shepherd. This is an invitation to return to the Lord in a time of prayer, confessing our dependence on Him and our need for the abundance, protection, and intimacy He offers us as His followers. Don't forget to like and subscribe.